Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual, and welcome back to the show. Obviously, today is episode 61 of the show, and as you guys voted on, we are going to be talking about in the poll, I put iPhone 2020 leaks, but I didn't have enough characters, but really what we're going to be talking about is the whole, I'd say, iPhone 2020 leak controversy that's been going on recently. And this has been going on for about a few weeks now. It's been a while, and to me, it's not really focusing on the leaks or focusing on what actually happened in the situation, but it's mainly addressing the credibility of journalism when it comes to reporting these things. And I mainly want to use today's episode to focus on, questioning your sources. And I'm going to be referring to John Prosser's video that he did on this because he's kind of part of this whole controversy, what he ended up doing. But he did say something that's very important that I want us to keep in mind. And it's what John said in this video that I'll put a link in the description so you can get an understanding of where he's coming from too. Where it's like, he literally tells people, stop believing everything you see on the internet. And I think that's very, very important, especially in today's day and age. When we really think about it, a lot of the information we get is from the media. And I'm also coming to understand this a little bit better myself due to my Foundations of Broadcasting class and understanding, how this shift in receiving news and journalism and how all this has changed in the course of, since we've had technology advancing really. And it kind of came to the forefront in this entire situation, which we're going to be referring to what Ben Geskin. So if you guys don't know who Ben Geskin is, if you go on his Twitter page, Ben Geskin is a Apple and mobile tech news person. Obviously, he's a concept designer as well. And he's known for, I'd say, the most credible leak that he actually was the first, I'd say one of the first people that leaked the iPhone X style design before, like years before they even released it. And he leaked it. And it was accurate, and that was his most accurate leak that he got because, nobody was expecting the iPhone X to look like the way it did, and now it's become, now every iPhone looks like it. But you get what I'm saying. And what happened was Ben Geskin started going on Twitter and started posting concepts of what he believes that the 2020 iPhone 12 Pro looks like. And it mainly comes down to the whole, what really I'd say irked John and what caused this entire thing was the fact that he was claiming that the next iPhone will have no notch and that they would fit the entire Face ID sensor system in the top bezel of the phone. And obviously, this started spreading like wildfire because people really do not like the notch. I find it funny how I believe there was a news article that somebody wrote where it's like, oh, people actually do care. People don't care about the notch. They don't mind. It's not a big deal. No, it's a pretty big deal because a lot of people agree it's ugly and that we should have never gone in this direction to begin with. But here we are. But what's really interesting was, I'd say, the whole situation and how John responded. And John was kind of upset. And I kind of agree with John on this one due to the fact that the renders, these whole render situation that Ben Gessin started putting out and started promoting that this is what, and he started changing his wording a little bit so that I kind of agree with John, to save his ass a little bit so that he wouldn't, so that when people find out it doesn't look like this, he can say, well, it was just a render. It was a concept. I said it could, it wasn't. And This is very dangerous, especially because a lot of news outlets were running with this. We're running with this story that they were saying, oh, leak of the 2020 iPhone. This is what it will look like. Face ID and top bezel. Like, they started going all on board on this, and they didn't bother questioning the legitimacy of it. And it became kind of more prominent, and this is where like John gets involved, is when MKBHD retweeted Ben Geskin's renders. And he responded by saying that give it USB-C and ProMotion and I'm in. And Ben Geskin actually responded saying that's what we're all expecting. And obviously John, like, personally, I'm going to say this now before I even go through this. I'm not focusing on the whole drama that this has all caused and like the whole beef. Well, I don't think there's really beef. It was just a conversation. But I'm not focusing on the drama, but I want you guys to understand that the whole purpose of this is to understand to why you should question your sources really in anything. You should really question your sources and really, question them and put it to the test. But I continue. Obviously, John responded, no, quotation marks, we all are not. And obviously, Ben Geskin asked John Prosser, what is he expecting? And John obviously responded by saying, a notch, maybe smaller, maybe more condensed, but a notch nonetheless. Even if they can get the sensors that small, they won't work under 2 to 2.5D glass, that you use in the renders, and that Quo says is being used. It's impossible. And then, this goes into like a whole, like, this goes down a whole rabbit hole. It's like, it's crazy. And to me, it's baffling that a lot of big outlets like Android Central, like all these, I know I only said Android Central, but you go like all these big tech websites that just ran with these renders and said, this is what the 2020 iPhone will look like. And it's baffling to me that there was a lack of journalism actually done here and didn't bother to question, because Ben Geskin later went on and then he actually backtracked completely everything that he said. And he was so 100% sure that these would be correct and that this is what it would look like. And then he changes his mind that, oh wait, there actually might be a notch. I'm 60% confident there'll be. Like, it's baffling to me that all these quote unquote journalists or tech journalists don't actually, do the facts. They don't check the facts. They don't check their sources. And this is very, very prevalent, especially with this entire situation going on with the 2020 iPhone, because it's like, we get it. The 2020 iPhone will be, in theory, a transition that we will see a new design, that we will. And obviously, yes, I get it. The new iPhones currently are selling like hotcakes. Like, we get it. It's obviously the new iPhones. And it's interesting, and I'll talk about that later, probably in a later episode. But the new iPhones, they're selling hotcakes. People really like them because it's a good change of pace. But when we think about the 2020 iPhone and this whole leak situation, to me, it's just showing how most people don't, especially journalists specifically, and I'm not targeting any specific journalist. I'm not going after them. I'm just going to criticize them for, I'd say, their lack of doing their job. And I know some people say, ooh, Josh is throwing heat out here, but it's not really. It's being honest, and we have to be, objective. We have to at least try to have at least be a difference between fairness and objective. And, this is where it became very prevalent, because they started posting these fake renders, because this isn't really a prototype. Everybody knows this is not going to happen. It just won't, because obviously a lot of the other leakers have confirmed that there still will be a notch. The notch will stay. We are expecting it. And the fact that everybody keeps adding these things like USB Type-C and ProMotion, like ProMotion, okay, I'll give people benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying it won't happen, but Now, USB Type-C, Apple, I highly doubt they'll put USB Type-C on the iPhones. They did it on the iPads. That's great. On the iPad, it needed it because it was a different platform. But when it comes to the iPhones, highly, highly doubt it. I highly doubt we will ever see USB Type-C on those iPhones. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying realistically, knowing Apple's track record, they won't do it because they have been pushing Lightning adapters for such a long time. They've been pushing this style of doing things for such a long time. I highly, highly, highly doubt it that we will see USB Type-C on an iPhone anytime soon. We won't. The 2020 iPhones, no, it's not happening. And if they do change their mind, well, color me damned. But the whole premise regarding this entire situation is mainly just showing how bad a lack of true journalists was here, or journalism skills was actually applied, because it's kind of something we even talked about in my foundation of media or broadcasting class. It's media and broadcasting, that we talked about it, how nowadays journalism, the main critique people have is the lack of credibility, that there is no credible journalism going on right now, that it all seems like yellow journalism. And if you guys know what yellow journalism is, for all the people that know what media and broadcasting and things in the ins and outs about that stuff, obviously yellow journalism refers to a lot of fake news. That's what the term means. And to me, it's kind of baffling how crazy this entire thing has gotten. To me, it's so baffling that we're relying so much on these quote unquote leaks, and we're not questioning our sources, and we're not fact checking, and we're not actually going through and doing our homework and questioning our sources. And it leads into this entire debacle where it just causes so much toxicity, causes so much arguments, causes so much, disputes. I'd say that's the right word to use in this scenario, where it just causes so much because people are willing to blindly just go with whatever, and they're not willing to question things, especially in technology, where this is where, like, it's kind of the whole thing that me and Juan always talk about, really, when he comes on, is, the lack of leadership in these discussions, that the people that actually are informed about these discussions, that are informed of what's going on, aren't leading these discussions and informing their friends, informing their families, informing their groups, and, using their influence that they have if they're a public figure, to actually promote real, thoughtful, insightful information that is well researched. And and then we kind of transition into this whole phase of just chasing clout. And like, I'm not saying Ben Geskin's a bad dude. He's not a bad guy. I don't know the dude personally. I don't have nothing against him personally. I have nothing against him. But I will say, and I will agree with John on this one, that it made it seem like this was just clout chasing and getting those Twitter likes. And I get it. Like, yes, he has one very, very credible leak under his belt, which was the iPhone 10 leak. And I applaud him incredibly for that. I actually didn't know about that until I watched the video with John where we're explaining the whole situation too, where to me it's just crazy. And I agree with John that we're just going in this rabbit hole as a tech community. And this is why a lot of people believe the YouTube tech community is very toxic, is because this whole stigma that it's all about arguing, it's all about, nobody can get along, that it's always something, that there always has to be something that pisses somebody off. And it's crazy. And I would say from my experience, being part of the YouTube tech community, and even looking at a lot of the bigger channels and just realizing how toxic it can, it gets really toxic, guys. I know I'm being honest with you guys. I'll be honest with you too, that, I kind of feel that fire a little bit, but that's also because I make sure that when I give an opinion or I give a take on something, I always make sure that I'm as informed as possible, or if not, I make it very clear that this is my opinion and my opinion alone. Because, this is what I always tell people that want to become public figures, or people that are public figures, that when you become active in the public limelight, you are open to criticism. It is fair game, because you are not a private citizen, even if you're a private citizen too, which private citizen just means an ordinary person that, just lives their normal life and doesn't worry about being a public figure. But when you become a public figure, and when you start putting yourself out there, and when you start promoting content and sharing your views and sharing your opinions on some things, yes, you are opening yourself up to criticism, and that's part of the gig. That's what happens. And, depending on how you grow from those criticisms and how you accept them, or really how you respond to them, I think is a better term to use, is where it's very crucial. And I just feel like nowadays we become so, I'd say we've adopted really fanboy nature, and it doesn't help that journalists, tech journalists really aren't doing their job either. It doesn't help because they're not informing, the masses. They're not actually promoting real, thoughtful, insightful research, but rather, yellow journalism or fake news, we're relying heavily on these leaks and like ideas and like we're going in this, I'd say, circle, in this rabbit hole where it's just causing so much issues. And it all stems from the fact that we're not questioning what we see. We're not actually thinking about it and sitting and saying, wait, this doesn't sound right. Something doesn't add up. We're not, and I get it, not everyone is supposed to do this, but I will say that for the people that are well informed and are doing their homework and are doing all the research and being, focused on the market and understanding what's going on, it's kind of our fault, guys. And it's like I said, it's what we always talk about when Juan comes on, is we need to be leading these discussions with our friends and family in our community. We need to be leading these discussions and sharing what's in our head. And, obviously there's a whole different way in how people share what's inside their head, because obviously everybody has a different way of communicating. But we need to understand that we have to share this information because it's very crucial, because it's what leads to these whole toxic conversations or fanboys. And it led to like this very, very egregious way of doing things. And to me, it's crazy because even companies, they're kind of fueling this stuff too. Like we talked about it. Samsung fuels it. Apple fuels it. We keep getting this kind of stuff from the companies because they're eating this up. They know they can, I'm not saying they're being malicious about it, but I'm saying is they're playing up to it because that's what everybody is doing. And they believe that's what they should do. And realistically, that's not what they should do. It's really, we should be trying to understand what's going on, like what actually is going on. And with this whole iPhone leaks situation and controversy, it just brought to the limelight that, guys, we need to start questioning what we are actually looking at. We need to question the sources. We need to question these leaks. We have to question these things. We should not be afraid to question something just because it looks accurate. Because just because something looks 99.99999% accurate does not mean it's absolutely right. There may be some stuff that's wrong about it. And I get it. It's much different when the company starts leaking a lot of the stuff, actual photos of the product. I'm talking to you, Google. We know you did it with the Pixel 4 and we're excited because it's the last phone to come out of the year. So we're excited for that. But it's, for example, take the OnePlus phones, take the iPhones of this year. Keep in mind, we already knew what this year's iPhones would look like. Sure, there was a lot of speculation on what they would do, if they would do a hole punch in the display, if they would do stuff like that. Obviously, we knew that wasn't going to happen. The notch was staying, and all they're doing was triple cameras and just change the back and then, etc. And so far, yeah, I think, to me personally, this is the reason why when I cover leaks, I make sure that I question a lot of the things going on, and I make sure that, I look into it myself. And it's kind of holding myself responsible, but at the same time, you guys are holding me accountable, because if I give false information, you guys can call me out on it, and I will go and actually realize, oh, there's something wrong. Let me go back and let me fix this or address it. And that's really what I like to do, because that's how it should be done. You should be willing to take criticism. And I'm mainly speaking to the guys and girls that, produce content, that make content for a large subscriber base, or, maybe if you don't even have a large subscriber base, maybe you only got 1,000 or less than 1,000. That's still great. You still have some influence on some people. But that does not mean, just because you have a small number, doesn't mean that you should get away with spreading false information and not doing your homework and being lazy. You should not do that. And I'll be honest, sometimes if it's something that I just know off the top of my head, I won't do that much research into it. And I'll be honest with you guys. But if it's something that I know that I am not that well versed in, or it's something that, especially if it's a guest, then I'll obviously go by what they're saying. But I'll also look into what they've actually done. I'll look at their previous works. What have they actually worked on? What is their stance on these things? And go through and do that stuff. But when it comes to topics that I'm just not that familiar with, I will do my homework. I will do my research. I will read articles that are actually well-informed and well-supported articles that are accurate, and go through and start breaking it down. And that's kind of what needs to be done. Now, I understand that the average consumer is not going to do this. They're going to look at reviews. They're going to look at influencers. They're going to look to people that quote unquote know what they're talking about. And I'm not focusing on the average consumer right now because I don't believe it's their fault, but I do believe it's their fault for not questioning their sources. And I blame journalists specifically because of lack of actually doing your job. And I know that sounds like I'm being very harsh. That sounds like I'm being very mean. I have no ill intent in my heart when I say that. I really don't. But I am frustrated that we've gotten to this point that we rely heavily on clickbait, that we rely heavily on fake journalism or yellow journalism. And we rely so heavily on just going by what the quote unquote leaks say and not question it and not do the research. And it's very scary, especially given this day and age, that we are very leak heavy. We live in a culture when it comes to technology where we always rely on leaks, where we rely on, oh, this birdie told me this. We heavily rely on it. And we need to be very careful, especially in this situation, because this can lead to some very, very bad scenarios, guys. Like, I'm being honest with you. Like, this can lead to some very, very bad things. This can. I don't know exactly what it will lead to, but I am very certain this will lead to something that once you open it, you can't take back. And that's kind of why, people, they always say when you want to do journalism and you want to do content, everything, they tell you tread waters lightly. Be mindful of what you're saying, because what you say, yes, you are allowed to say, write, whatever you want. You're protected by, if you live in the U.S., you're protected by the First Amendment. You are allowed to say whatever the heck you want, as long as it doesn't present a clear and present danger, but that it only has been used once. But that does not mean that you are not open to criticism. You are very open to criticism. If you say something bad about somebody and it is proven to be liable and you said it with ill intent, then yes, you can be sued for it. Now, you can prove if it's true or not because, it leads into a whole bunch of legal stuff. But you get what I'm saying is you are open to criticism. You are allowed to have your opinion, even if it's wrong or right. You are allowed to have your opinion. You are. But you can be criticized for your opinion, and you have to be okay with that. And to me, it's crazy how with this whole leak culture, everybody goes so defensive when it comes to the leaks. They're like, oh, this is a leak. Oh, this has to be true. Anybody that questions this is dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. And, this leads into like this whole toxic, like it's what I mentioned is like, it's just a toxic cycle that just constantly keeps enforcing itself. And it's very, very concerning. And we, not only as I'd say, well, I'm not going to say I'm an influencer. I'm nowhere near that. Like, I'm going to be humble. I'm not going to go anywhere near that. Like, I'm nowhere near Juan and their level. I'm not. I'm being humble. Like, as somebody that is informed on what's going on in the market and somebody that does my homework, it's my responsibility to make sure that when I share information, I make sure that it's as accurate as possible and that I did my homework and that I show my homework. Because, it's kind of the thing, like, think of it like when you're taking a test. In a test. You're taking a test for a class. The teacher tells you, hey, I'm only grading the right answer. I'm not going to look at your work but if you get something wrong and you don't have work, then we can't really talk about it. But that's why you always show your work, to show where you went wrong or why you got it right. Because if you do that, that shows that you understand the ins and outs of the problem and that you understand what is being asked of you, or that you understand the information that is being presented. And a lot of people seem to ignore this. They rather just rely on having something do everything for them or somebody do it all for them and not question it, which that's a very dangerous thing. That's why I say for me, I always have, I'd say, semi-hot takes when it comes to stuff because, I make sure that I know what I'm talking about. I make sure that I look at articles. I look at what's actually being said. I question those articles too. If there's something sketchy in them, I will catch them and I will question it. But I make sure I'm well informed on the topic. And if I see somebody else talking about it and it shows that, maybe something doesn't line up, but I ask them, what do you mean by this, like this specific part? And let them explain and hear them out and then share with them what I feel. And then, it goes from there and becomes a healthy discussion, a conversation. This doesn't become an argument. This doesn't become a debate. This becomes a conversation of sharing like where we're coming from and sharing what's in our heads and, you know, putting it in the table so that if somebody else sees it, they see two different viewpoints and they can not choose which one's right or wrong, but take those 2 points into mind and then generate their own opinion because of it, or take those 2 viewpoints, add it with their opinion, and then come to a decision. That's what's really good about this stuff. But it just feels like nowadays we've kind of gone into this whole toxic circle where, you know, we can't really do that as effectively as we want to nowadays. And it really sucks. To me, it sucks. And I only pray and hope that, you know, that real, I'd say, people that are really interested in understanding technology, understanding the market, come through and actually, you know, lead these discussions and not rely on fake journalism or relying on leak culture to share information just to get the clout. I really hope that we come to a day where this is under control and that we start to undo a lot of that toxic stigma that's known for the tech community, because a lot of people believe the tech community is incredibly toxic. They do. They like, obviously I know sports fan clubs. Yeah, that can get toxic. Cowboys, I'm talking about you. Okay. If you're a Cowboys fan, please don't come at me. But I will say this, the Cowboys suck. So get over it. Oh, I'm so going to get hate for that, but you get what I'm saying. And I really hope this episode is very helpful for you guys. Like I said, I wasn't focused on the leaks that much because I don't want this to be focused on the leaks. I don't even want this to be focused on the whole discussion or conversation that was going on between Ben Geskin and John. And if you're interested in learning about John's viewpoint, I'll put the video in the description below so you guys can actually understand where John's coming from and why he says what he says. But this is my take on it, so I hope you guys understand that this is my take. So take that into consideration, that this is my take. And I hope that you guys understand that you walk away informed, knowing that you should not trust everything you see on the internet. And I'll take that quote from John because it's so true. You should not just trust everything you see on the internet. You should not. You should question things with a grain of salt, or take things into a grain of salt and then put it to the test. That is how you'll know if it's true or if it's false. When you put it to the test. If it passes the test, it's true. If it fails it, it doesn't work. So I hope you guys really enjoyed today's episode. To me, I know it seems like I'm coming off very negative. I'm really not. I'm not negative in any aspect. I have no ill intent in my heart towards any people involved or towards towards journalists. I don't. I just want them to understand that you are accountable for what you say. And a lot of what's going on is a lack of credibility and a lack of actual journalism is going on. And I hope that you guys understand that. I'm not targeting you guys. I'm just saying what you do can be criticized, and I'm criticizing what you're saying. And I hope it's constructive criticism, because I'm not just going to tell you what's wrong, but I'm going to tell you, hey, what you're doing is not right. Here's an idea on how you can fix it. And that's constructive criticism. It's not just focusing on the negatives of what one person is doing, but you tell them, what good have you done? What obviously address what happened and address how you can go forward from there. That is what constructive criticism looks like. And I hope that I provided some constructive criticism in this entire discussion. But I hope you guys enjoy. I love you guys to death. I will see you guys Friday, because Friday is going to be a great episode because Juan is coming back on the show. I know what you guys are saying. You guys are saying, Josh, how many times has Juan been on the show already? Like, why don't you just have him on the show as a regular? I'm like, true. We'll think about that. But we're going to have a great discussion on Friday, so I hope you guys come back and listen. It's going to take a little bit of time to upload Friday's episode because I'm not recording it on Thursday like I normally do for Friday episode. This will be recorded on Friday and go live Friday, so, you know, so be patient with me. It's going to take some time, but I hope you guys enjoy. I love you guys to death. Have yourselves a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys Friday. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.